wrong?
Lionel, you must listen to me. Dark forces are massing against you. My grandmama has seen it. The path ahead is one of fear and great danger. Fernando!
Okay, retro go. Let's go.
Hello and welcome. Welcome and hello. This is Wait, You Haven't Seen? It's a show where we talk about movies, and specifically, we talk about a movie at least one of us has never seen before. I'm your host, Travis, aka TV's Travis. This is episode number 292, and we are wrapping up Spooky Month with the GORE Podcast takeover with 1992's Dead Alive, or Braindead, depending on where in the world you live. Joining me to talk about it from the GORE Podcast, it's the Wicked Kitten, always getting into mischief.
Dog dead. Details later.
The endearing and ethereal Faye.
Hi.
And the dread you've been feeling since you started this lawnmower, it's Dreadly.
I kick ass for myself.
So 1992's Dead Alive, or Brain Dead as it was originally titled. It got changed to Dead Alive in the U.S. There's a story behind that that I can get to in a little bit. But first, Faye, you had not seen this movie before.
Correct.
Have you seen other early Peter Jackson movies? Pre-Lord of the Rings stuff?
I don't know.
Oh, okay.
I don't pay attention to a lot of the cast and stuff unless it's somebody I see over and over again.
Were you at least familiar with this movie existing and you just never got around to seeing it, or had you not heard of it until recently?
I think I remember seeing the VHS box in the video stores, but other than that, no.
Okay.
It just wasn't one that I went to go, oh, I want to see this. And I wish I had.
Monica, how about you?
Oh, I've absolutely seen this movie. This was like a rite of passage for me. And that box art is absolutely just like famous with the opening the mouth and thing.
Yeah.
That's just, I was like, what is this movie? And then I had friends that got me into horror, and they were very much into this kind of horror. And
it's the poster he's using.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's just, that's it. That's the famous, that's it.
Which is funny because it's not actually anything from the movie. Like there's a moment like it, but that image is solely the box art.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, okay. So you had seen this one. Dread, how about you?
I thought I had seen it, but I have not. Well, I have now. I hadn't. Because I just, in my mind, it was bad taste, and I figured it was the same movie, because why not? It was not the same movie, actually.
No.
It was not.
No, same people.
Very far difference.
Same creator, but not the same movie at all. So Peter Jackson, if you're a film buff at all, you know him from the Lord of the Rings trilogy. He did those movies and King Kong and the Hobbit movies, but he got his start in New Zealand making movies like this. And he didn't go to film school. They didn't have a film school back then in New Zealand. So he just made movies, and he wanted to be a special effects guy, is apparently what he wanted to start out as. So he was doing these shorts and whatnot, and then he made Bad Taste. That was his first full-length feature film. But he also loved doing puppet stuff, so he makes Meet the Feebles after that, which also has quite the cult following, and I might have to watch on this if I can find the right guest to watch Meet the Feebles. I would like to do that one for this show, because exposing somebody to that would be, it's puppets, but it ain't your daddy's puppets. Let's put it that way. It's not your parents' puppet movie at all. So that might have to happen at some point. But then he made this. This is zombie horror comedy splatter fest. It is about the only way I can describe this. Faye, having now watched it for the first time, you said earlier you wish you had seen it before. So you had a good time with it?
Yeah, I mean, I probably would have liked it when I was younger, because it definitely reminds me a lot of Evil Dead.
Oh yeah, Evil Dead. Sam Raimi was a big influence on Peter Jackson's early stuff, so I can see that. Dread. Now that you've seen it, and you realize that it is not bad taste, what did you think?
I think Peter Jackson should have stayed with this kind of stuff and forgotten about Lord of the Rings and all that. Just keep doing this. Give me more of this. I liked it. That means it. Yeah.
No. Okay. And Monica, you've seen it at least twice. How many times have you seen this, do you think?
Okay, so I probably haven't seen it like a ton. So
Mhm.
this probably, I'm gonna say 3 times,
Okay.
which is, it's not like I've seen it. Well, I just said that. I'm gonna say the same thing twice, apparently.
But
But it was fun seeing it with Dread, by the way, because he's like, "Oh, I haven't seen this," and I'm like, "You haven't?"
because and I think 3 times is a good amount of times to have seen this movie because there's a lot in this. I'll just say right up front, if you're thinking about watching this movie and you haven't yet, number one, we're going to spoil everything in it, but that's whatever. This isn't like a huge thing to spoil a 30-something-year-old movie. But also, what I will spoil is, for sure, is it's gross. It's very gross. There's a lot of gross. There's literal buckets of blood and other bodily fluids involved, many of them.
Yeah.
Plenty of other bodily fluids.
It is to see Peter Jackson's evolution as a director in what he put on screen is really interesting because when you watch the Lord of the Rings movies, there are scenes where you see bits and pieces of like this movie in Lord of the Rings, but they're short. They're a few seconds here, a few seconds there. It's not the last 20 minutes of the movie, but for him to evolve, the storytelling was already there. He and his wife, Fran Walsh, co-wrote this screenplay with another person. And the storytelling is there, but then he just changed some of the execution, but there's still always that look towards making the movie look good and tell the story that they want. And he actually shot this on 16 millimeter film instead of 35 millimeter because that was less expensive film stock. So he could put more money of the budget into the effects to put that on screen, which I think is really smart for a young filmmaker. And it pays off because those effects are something else. They're cheesy for sure, but man, can you imagine? Just imagine what that set smelled like.
No.
Because you've got all that fake blood and all that viscera. Like they shot this in 11 weeks, I believe it was the shooting schedule, and at least 4 of that were on the final sequence in the house.
I can believe that.
And apparently by the end of that, people were just miserable because everything was wet and gross and it smelled bad, and you had all that stuff sitting under like hot lights, but yet it was also December apparently, or winter. I don't know. December is their summertime.
It's the opposite over there. Yes.
So I either read that it was December or maybe I read that it was winter and I put December into my brain. But either way, the actor who plays the main character said that it like things were freezing. His clothes were freezing with all the fake blood on them. So it's just crazy to think of like how bad that smelled. I did love the gag where he tries to run away though, and the floor is covered in blood, so he can't get away. He's just Scooby-Dooing in his place. That killed me.
He just goes faster because that will work.
Of course,
I've done that before, by the way, on ice. Like I've had that moment of like, whoop, 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 whoop. It didn't last that long or end well, but
there was a similar gag
It never
done.
does.
Yeah, Dead and Breakfast did a similar thing. But instead of it was still played for laughs, but instead of him running in place, it was the aftermath of something and the guy just slipping all over the place because it's just nothing but blood everywhere. And I loved that. But this was a funnier version of that because he's just literally trying so hard to run away and just getting nowhere. And finally has to walk on top of body parts to get away, which killed me. But yeah, this movie is just, there's a lot going on in it, but the story to it is fairly simple. but I think kind of a neat little story. And one of the things that I've seen this now, I think this is the second or third time that I've seen this movie. But it's been quite a while. And I forget, for some reason, how much of the mother-son relationship reminds me of Psycho a little bit, like a pre.
Oh,
You know,
yeah.
it's like a Norman Bates origin story.
That was exactly my
I-
thing. Is this a prequel to
I-
Psycho?
That mom. No, thank you.
No, she's terrible. She's absolutely awful. And okay, the so we start off in Skull Island, and I wasn't paying attention to the slug at the bottom, so I saw Skull Island, but I didn't see 1957 for some reason. So I went through watching most of the movie trying to remember, was this a period movie or not? And I'm seeing all the cars, but there's nothing. They're not like, nothing else was indicating it until we see Mom's gravestone later and we see 1957. But you're starting off on Skull Island, and that location they shot at in New Zealand is a pretty famous one. It's used in this, and it's used in Lord of the Rings and a lot of stuff. But that opening basically tells you what the movie's going to be pretty strongly.
So, well, any actual logic is thrown out the window.
Mm-hmm. I really like the guy holding up his permit. Like, I've got from the big boss man himself the permit, and he hands it to the natives, and I'm thinking the natives don't read that language. Like, they may have their own written language. It ain't English, and they don't care about your permit from whoever. So that was getting me pretty good. But and then of course they chop the guy up right at the end of it, which was that was our first case of, ooh boy, this is going to be. How prepared for the gore level were you, Faye?
Oh, I saw one of the documentaries for horror had this in it, which is why I said, "Oh, I want to see that."
Okay.
So I kind of knew.
All right. So you had a little bit of an idea.
Yep.
So yeah, they're bringing back, what is it? The Sumatran Rat Monkey.
Is that the new Starbucks flavor for the month?
Yeah.
Because that's all I could think. Like, isn't that a kind of coffee that they have there?
That's only available on that one island. That's the only place they exist.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah, definitely. Skull Island, which was Peter Jackson's nice nod to King Kong. He was a King Kong
Where is
fan.
King Kong? Damn it.
We thought it was the wrong movie for like a quick second because I didn't remember the very beginning, and I'm like, what is this? Wait a minute.
Well, 10 years or so later, 15 years later, he made King Kong. So, which in
I did not see.
his King Kong film, on the boat, they have a box labeled Sumatran Rat Monkey. So he did make a nod to his own movie in there, which is great.
I love it.
But yeah, they get what I thought was funny was that the guys who are like, this thing is bad news, you know, this thing's evil, all that, end up selling it to the zoo anyway.
Oh yeah, money.
Which tells you right there, money is what anyone ever cares about. So then we get to our main story, which is Lionel, played by Timothy Balm, and we meet him coming into the store, the little market run by Paquita and her dad and grandmother. What do we think of her, Monica? What do you think of Paquita?
Paquita. There's something like that I love about her, but she also annoys me a little bit. But all in all, she's like a good person, right? So like, you know, I went back and forth with her, but like I think I like her. I'm going with liking. I like her.
She's just looking for love.
Yeah.
Right. Stupidly, but yeah.
Well, what I love is how she's so smitten with the one guy who comes in, right? She's all about the first dude that comes in. But then as soon as her grandmother reads the tarot cards for her and tells her that that's not the man for her, and gives her all, now she's just all about Lionel. Because the cards foretold.
At first not, because at first it's like, ew. But then the pencils drop.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
it's
Form
all
the symbol.
Yep, that's all
Yeah.
it takes. Now she believes it. She believes it. So there it is. Yes, Monica.
And he quite literally gets yoinked off his feet in love. Because that shot was great, wasn't
Yes.
it?
Oh, it was fantastic. Yeah. So Lionel and Paquita meet, and now she brings the was it? Oh, so then he goes home, and that's when we meet his mom and Vera, who's terrible. She's awful, just yelling at him, berating him, all sorts of terrible stuff. But she's gotten, what is it, like the vice presidency of the Wellington Women's League or something?
Yeah.
Wellington Women's Welfare League.
That sounds pretentious enough to be the right thing.
Close enough, I'm sure.
It was very,
I may
very
have captured that. I'll play it later.
fancy.
But she wants the house all cleaned up, so that's all going on when Paquita brings her dog Fernando over and drops off the groceries. And they set up a date for the next day, even though
That
mom
Mom
doesn't want
doesn't
him going
like.
on a date. No, mom's not happy about that.
I mean, Paquita sets up the date, if we're
Well,
going to
yeah.
be honest.
Yes,
You know?
absolutely. So they go on a date to the zoo because of, I guess he mentions the zoo. He mentions something being a zoo. I don't remember how
I think he
exactly.
corrects her English or something.
That could be it, yeah.
Something like that. I remember, because then she's like, oh, yeah, so we can go to the zoo or something.
Yes, that's right. Diana Panalver, sure that's probably pronounced wrong, but she was Paquita. She got cast because at one point this was going to be a joint New Zealand Spain production. There was going to be a company from Spain putting up some money for it, so they cast her to have a connection to Spanish audience, and then that company backed out and didn't actually put any money into it. But Peter Jackson liked her, so he kept her in the role anyway. I liked her. I thought she was fun. So they go on their date the next day to the zoo, and I like how we don't find out right away that mom has come along and is spying on them. Right? They're just having a
But
nice,
the way
lovely
we
date.
find out is so hilarious now.
Oh, it's
Yeah.
great. Because they're going around looking at all the animals and all of that, and of course Paquita is just laying it on thick. Like she's all about this date. By the way, I loved Lionel's costuming. I loved all his sweater vests. Those were fantastic.
Yes.
They see the monkeys, and this is where our first weirdness happens, right? Because the monkeys are there. One of the monkeys throws something at him,
Yeah.
as monkeys
So what
do.
you do? You throw it back.
Yeah.
Because sure.
Yeah.
Monkey see, monkey do.
And then the Sumatran Rat Monkey is in the cage next to him and grabs one of the other monkeys and like rips its leg off right in front of them. So that's when
I thought it was his tail.
was it his tail? It was something. He ripped something off.
Yeah.
It was brutal.
It was. And that stop motion for the rat monkey was great. I love that puppet.
Yeah.
It's grotesque.
Rat head, monkey body.
Yeah.
Ooh, no hair.
Then we get the
Evil.
we get the full story. We get the story of how the Sumatran rat monkey came to be from the zoo worker, who's just ridiculous. That guy, he was like the movie's Crazy Ralph, in a way.
I like to a little bit ahead when they finish this scene and everyone just walks away from them. That dude just walks into the bushes, straight into the bushes. I don't know where to go. I'm going here.
That's great.
He homers.
He really does.
They probably just told him walk forward, and that was the way he was facing.
Mm-hmm. But after the whole thing with the monkeys, they walk away, and then we find out mom is there spying on them because they're like smooching on the bench or something, right? And we see her there, and she's right up against the monkey cage, and the rat monkey bites her, grabs her arm and bites her. And what I liked here was by the end of the movie, like it makes perfect sense the way that she responded, but then when you learn about her character at the end of the movie, it makes even more sense that she went straight to just like curb stomping that rat monkey. because that's just what she does in front of everybody, like just heel stomps that thing. Gross. In front of all the people.
I might do that. I'm
Well,
gonna be honest.
it bit her. So of
Yeah.
course she did. And then she makes Lionel take her home. So date's over. And
Yeah.
that shot is
And-
great though. When they
Anything to
like,
make it over.
yep, exactly. But I love that shot ending the date where it's the crane shot up and it's just Paquita standing there and everyone just walks away from her.
Yep, everyone different direction.
Yep. So mom and Lionel go home and she's in rough shape. And this is when everything starts to happen, right? Because now they bring the nurse in. The nurse checks on her. All right, everything's fine. Go to bed. And Paquita comes back. I guess I'm going to assume that she stayed for most of the night, right? When she comes back and brings him his jacket, because they're like laying on the bed for a little while.
Oh,
Yeah.
is that when they were like,
I think so.
doing it?
I think
Yeah,
so.
it's when she's climbing up
Am I allowed to say that?
the ladder there that's randomly placed on his balcony.
Yeah.
What?
Which I called slut ladder, because like, I'm like, why does he have a ladder straight to his room? Just
So
saying.
that mom doesn't know.
Right.
That is a very overprotective and overbearing mother.
Yeah, you think
I
she would have ripped that
loved
ladder down?
that house, though. That house was awesome.
True.
Yes.
Huge, and it's like it stands out so much on that hillside amongst all those other houses, but it was just cool looking. So yeah, now mom starts to turn, and this movie's got like there's a lot of really gross scenes in this, but probably the one that was the most just for me is before, I think it's before mom is even dead. It's the next day when the women's league president and her husband shows up, and so of course she's like, oh, it's Friday, and this was a big to do, right? So they got to have their dinner, they got to have their meal with these people, and should have maybe been like, to Lionel's credit, he's like, we can just tell them to leave and do it a different day. Like, you're not in any shape to do this. And of course, mom, no. And
no, we've got to do this. Put glue on my face to put it back together.
Yeah, don't worry about it.
Right. Oh, oof, man.
Don't worry, my ear won't
glue.
fall into the soup.
Oh, but it's not soup. That's the worst part.
Well,
it's custard.
Right. So
it's the most that's already disgusting to think about people eating.
Custard's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
No, but the color and then like the stuff that's gooping out of everything.
Oh yeah, no,
it's just,
the whole
it looks
scene
just like everything.
Yeah, and the whole scene is gross anyway, but it's made so much worse by the amazing sound work that they did for this movie. Because the sound in this entire movie is amazing, and I hate it so much.
Because we know Travis loves those bathroom sounds.
I just
the way she touched her thing and like it basically what's the word, like ejaculated into the thing. I'm just like,
oh, you mean the pus?
Yeah.
Just like across the, and it made the sound.
And I love how the wife sees it and she doesn't say anything. She lets the husband go on and on.
She just lets her husband eat that.
There's a lot of that in this movie, which I'll mention later, of like people seeing stuff happening and not doing or saying anything about it. But no, this particular scene was just like the shots of the guy eating the custard. It's just terrible because it was like this super tight, low angled, and then you add in all the gross mouth noises and the sounds, and it's just, of everything in this movie, that was the scene that was the hardest for me to watch, which is saying something. During that scene, as I'm watching it today, I was like, I'm really glad I wasn't eating breakfast while watching this movie.
That is probably the most disgusting scene. And I would say the second one, I'm going for the dog. like
Oh, yeah.
pulling that slow pull.
Oh yeah.
For someone who has long hair and who has had that's as far as I'm going with this analogy. I'm just
Mhm.
saying, for someone who has long hair.
Yeah.
Ew.
Nope. I know what you mean. Yeah, just that whole eating scene was just rough. And of course the ear falling off and she eats the ear
Nom, nom.
and like mom is just falling apart. And so then she ends up just dying, straight up dying later on. But whatever the Sumatran rat monkey does to you, you don't die and you just turn into whatever the hell kind of zombies these are. And so then we just get like this long middle part of the movie where Lionel is trying like hell to keep her like sedated. He's getting tranquilizers from some weird, what would you call that guy? I mean, I
Funny
know
story.
a word to use because they're not subtle about it. But what's your funny story? Go for it.
You want to tell your funny story, Dred?
I
Or do you
mean,
want me to?
the moment you see him, he turns around. I'm like, huh, okay. And he starts talking. I'm like, you're German, aren't you? And then he goes on, no, my family came from what, Lithuania or something? One of
I think it was
those
Latvia.
countries over there.
To
Latvia.
which I said, by the way, I go, I wonder if he's one of those hidden Nazis.
And at that exact point, they show his sleeve
Yes.
with
With
the
the
Nazi
patch.
symbol on it.
Mhm.
Yep, no,
I was
no,
like,
they're not.
okay. Not subtle. Not subtle at all.
No. But why? I forget why.
There was a lot of
was-
not subtle.
No, subtlety is not a part of this movie in any way, shape, or form. But why was Lionel there? Was he just there to try and he was at the doctor's office to try and find sedatives, right? That's what it was.
Yeah.
He just
Yeah.
happened to wander to this one guy's lab. And
He was a veterinarian, right? Is that what he said he was?
could
that what it was?
yeah, that's what it was. Yes.
Because he did. I don't know if he didn't want to go to a doctor.
Either way, I guess it really doesn't matter. But he doesn't have any sedatives for him, but he has tranquilizers. Just a bottle of liquid tranquilizer.
Oh, yeah.
Like you do.
Only
Yeah.
administered through the nose, by the way. That's
Mhm.
how they work.
Yeah. So he takes that home, and now he's got to deal. Oh, this is after. So when mom passes, the nurse is there, and then the nurse gets attacked by mom. So we get our first second zombie, which is nurse. What was her name? McTavish.
Nurse Flappy
Yeah.
Neck.
Nurse McTavish. Yes, Flappy Neck. That gag was funny. I have to give him credit on
Yes.
that, especially
The special effects, man.
the effect was great. And then the couple of times where they would show from her POV and everything was upside down, that was real good too.
Upside
I
down
liked
and
that.
behind her.
Yes. So he's got them in the basement. So he starts using the basement to store them. But I guess you can only keep that under wraps for so long because now we're having like a funeral service for his mom.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
And that's when Uncle Les shows up, who is
the least favorite character.
yes,
in the
the
movie.
worst character in the movie by far.
Yeah.
Like worse than all of the zombies and all of the terrible stuff. Like, nope, just Les. Les is terrible. Hate him. Hated him. But he shows up and of course he's all like he's lecherous and he's smoking and he's the only one not wearing black at the funeral. He was Vera's brother and blah blah blah. You get the priest was Father Magruber. Magruder.
The
I might have
greatest
captured a
person
couple
ever.
of. I might have captured a couple of his lines because there's some good ones.
Oh, you don't say.
Yeah. But
Best character in the movie, by the way.
I was going to say he was my favorite.
Yeah, he was great. But yeah, so they have the funeral, which of course goes all wrong because the embalming machine is left on for too long, so she gets overly embalmed, but then put into a casket anyway.
Sealed casket.
Can we first point out the embalming machine with the sandwich on top of the body and
Of
the
course.
dude cramming the
The
sandwich?
He eats it.
You know who that was, by the way? That was Peter Jackson.
Yeah, I was gonna
Aw.
say, I'm like, that looks like Peter Jackson.
Yeah, that Peter Jackson played the mortuary assistant with, and of course they had the trope of the sandwich on the body. Like you can't not. So everything goes wrong, and then later that night, Lionel goes back to the graveyard to put more tranquilizers into his mom, and that's when he's attacked by the goons. One of them is played by Jed Brophy, who had worked with Peter Jackson later on. He does a lot of. He was the one, Void, the main one, the one that gets turned into a zombie. And he's worked with Peter Jackson a bunch of Lord of the Rings stuff, played a lot of different like orc characters and stuff like that. But that whole scene in the graveyard was amazing because those guys accost him, and then Void gets up on the grave and starts peeing on it, and that's when like a hand just comes rocketing out of the ground and grabs him right by the junk, and just a
Stuff happens. Stuff happens in
spray
that
of
grave.
blood.
Oh.
Yeah.
And
Amazing.
like the whole fight sequence goes, or the whole sequence goes on, and that's when Father Magruder shows up and just goes ham on those guys before finally getting bit by the disembodied head and getting turned into a
It
zombie.
just falls on him.
It does perfectly.
Ah.
So poor Lionel now, he's got his mother, he's got Nurse McTavish, he's got this random greaser biker dude, Void, and now the priest, Father Magruder, are all zombies he's got to deal with in his basement.
I do love how not only did he get bit, but he also like jumped up and landed on that statue, like stabbed him straight through.
Yes.
And I'm like, oh, I guess he's just dead. No, he's dead alive. Okay.
Yeah, I know.
We get to have him for the rest of the movie thing.
We need him for some of more disgusting scenes.
Yes, some
Oh,
real
boy.
disgusting
Ooh.
things.
And
Some great fake karate.
yeah, no, it was great. When it him and his stunt doubles, because there was definitely a couple times where I'm like, that's a different person.
Oh, don't even get me started with that.
So then we go to like the next day, and I love that too, because now, and this is where the horror comedy part of it really gets to shine, is like the next day he's putting tranquilizer into like scrambled eggs to feed them. So he's got them all in the dining room, and he brings them in their food, and they can't figure out how to eat properly. Like I like Void putting everything. It's like, no, Void, use the spoon. So he uses the spoon and just shoves it through his head.
And then the guy next to him steals it from the spoon.
Yep.
Because it stayed on the spoon somehow, by the way. Straight through the head.
Nurse McTavish too, when she goes to eat, it's just dribbling back out. That was a really impressive effect, I have to say. It looks really absolutely good, but it's coming out through because her head is mostly off.
Oh yeah, through the
throat. So he's got to like tilt her head back and just spoon feed it straight down. It was gross as hell. And all this is going on, and this is when Les shows up, knocking at the door. So Lionel goes out to check on him, and Father Magruder and Nurse McTavish start getting a little frisky. And Les is shown up because he wants his cut of the inheritance. Because, well, your mom and I were real close, and she was going to leave me stuff, but she died before she could put me in the will. Yeah, sure, Les.
He's such a creep.
I hate him so much. But that's when he hears, and we hear, Father Magruder and Nurse McTavish. Well, zombie sex is all I'll say. Luckily, we don't have to watch too much of it, at least at this point, but we certainly hear it. Which I did. That was funny when Les was like, oh, you found your dad's old stag films.
Oh, God.
It's pretty bad. Because then, well, he gets Les to leave, and he puts them all back down in the basement, but Nurse McTavish now has a zombie baby.
Real fast.
They
Real
don't take
fast.
9 months, apparently.
No.
Yeah.
No, it's like 9 minutes.
Yeah, and that baby had many stunt actors.
Oh, yeah.
That baby.
Oh, my gosh. Yes.
So
It was different sizes.
So yeah, the zombie baby happens, and then we get the scene where he takes him to the park. So that wasn't originally part of the shooting. And what happened was, as the story goes, they wrapped up shooting and they still had like $45,000 in their budget. And so this was a scene that Peter Jackson had wanted to do, but didn't think he would have the budget and the time to do. And now he did. So he decided to shoot it anyway. And he's like, it doesn't have anything to do with the plot. Doesn't need to be in the movie at all, but it's probably my favorite part, is what Peter Jackson said. And it's just straight up like Buster Keaton slapstick goofiness as he takes the baby in that pram to the park. And this was where, again, stuff happens here and people see it and it's horrible and they don't do anything or say anything, because when the baby gets out and starts running around, it's just ridiculous. But when he grabs the baby, the zombie baby, and starts punching it in the face and hitting it against the side of the swing set, and there's those two moms sitting on the bench watching it, horrified, but they don't do anything. They're just watching this guy hit a baby against a swing set and stuff it into a bag.
Some of it looks like it might have been on accident, but others you can tell.
It was a different time back then, right? Can we, like, I'm gonna guess it's like the 50s. People are
Late 50s, 57, it said.
but
I mean,
still, like,
still, I feel like
I
if you saw somebody straight up like punch a baby
it's
in the
different.
face, you'd say something.
No, nowadays that person be in jail
Well, of course.
immediately, you know? That's crazy.
But yeah, that whole sequence is absolutely ridiculous, but it cracked me up. And I think why it cracked me up so much is partly because of the ridiculousness of the shots of the baby running around where it's clearly just a person in a suit, not even close to baby sized.
Yep. Yeah, the absurdity was off the charts with the baby.
It really was.
Hey, I even made a note. Things I liked. Everything with the baby.
Just all of it, because it's just dumb, and I loved every second of it. But we get that scene, then he gets back home. I think this is when Les comes back, right? And he figures out that he's got a bunch of dead bodies in the basement or something. How does he find that?
Does he go into the basement, or isn't he sneaking around the house or something like that? Or
That
he
He
looks
was
in the
probably
window?
looking around for stuff to steal or
Yeah.
something.
He was definitely sneaking around. I feel like he must have pried open the door or something. But
Yeah, something. So he finds out that the bodies are down in the basement. So he uses that to blackmail Lionel and basically say, I want all the money in the house or I'm calling the police. So Lionel gives in.
In the process of calling the police.
Yeah.
hey,
So-
police, I'd like to report a murder.
And then just hang up and nothing happens from that.
Yeah, I'm sure you were calling the cops. Sure.
So Lionel gives in, does that. And we get to our climactic moments, or the third act, which is when all of Les's friends show up for a big party at his new house. Oh boy. This is when the movie goes completely off the rails in the best ways possible, because it was already gross and just blood soaked and ridiculous. But the movie was like, hold my beer.
Yeah, because Monica told me earlier that this movie had like a most blood used or something record in a sense.
It had a record, or I don't know if it still
And I'm
does.
like,
Obviously,
no,
it's-
Evil Dead exists. Come on now, and what we've seen so far, no. And then that happened. I'm like, blood everywhere. Well,
Yeah.
maybe they got there. I don't know.
that hadn't happened yet. That's why he was like, I
Yeah.
don't think so.
Because like the party starts off, the party is just, a bunch of drunk, dumbasses doing party stuff. And Paquita shows up, and Les, of course, still hitting on her, just being terrible because we hate him. How does it? Oh, so Lionel has them all tied up in the basement, but somehow Void gets free. And he comes up to the top of the stairs and is banging on the door. And so some drunk guy lets him out, and Void starts biting people and eating people and all this kind of stuff. So you got like Lionel trying to get him back in the basement, and all of this. During this is when Paquita finds the basement and goes down there and finds the dead bodies. And we have to remember too that like this whole time she has been, told by her grandmother that like death is going to surround this man and this is who you're going to, all of these signs that her grandmother told him, and it's all, all happening. So she sees all of this. I loved, by the way, the when Lionel and Void are back in the basement and Void goes to get at Paquita, the rake bit where Lionel stabs the rake in the top of his head and then puts him into the vice to hold him in place. I loved that. That was perfect.
It's so subtle and just like it's like a matter of fact move, and that's what makes it so like fluidly beautiful.
It's so good. So he knows he's got to do something about it, but he can't. And Paquita is like, you need to destroy them, basically, and convinces him that he's got to kill his, re-kill or whatever, the mom and everybody, because that thing isn't his mom, right? That's what finally does it for him. So they find the big glass bottle of poison, right? Because he had the big glass jug that just said tranquilizer on it. Now he's got a big glass jug of poison in his basement for whatever reason. So they use that and bury all the bodies. Right? Problem solved. Everything's great.
The end.
Mm-hmm. Oh, wait. That's not poison. That's animal stimulant. Not for use with humans. Sure. Why not? I mean, it's not the most impossible thing we've seen in this movie. So, you just go with it. But that makes all the zombies burst out and go upstairs and just wreak havoc. And this is when the blood really starts to flow. And this is when it gets absolutely insane.
Yep. It turns into an undead orgy.
I just like to just pointing out that the way they jump out was amazing. Just literally jumping out.
Yeah. All right. So I don't need to go into super detail about this whole final act bloodbath scene because it's basically a ton of like zombie movie tropes and gags and all of this stuff. And then he shows up with the lawnmower and says party's over and all of that. But and that's when we went from a 10 to a 12 on the blood scale. But starting Monica with you, do you have a favorite of that kind of third act crazy zombie stuff that happened? Because there's so many of them and so many of them are so good, but do you have one in particular that stands out to you?
I feel like there's a lot, and I think this time, I think each time you watch it, you just focus on something different. And so I'm just gonna say what I focused on this time, and that was the guy's head that was just moving around the room. It was just like that much of his head, and he ends up in the food processor a little bit later.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's a ton of stuff, but I'm gonna go with that head because it was just. I'm sitting there some of the time. I'm like, how did they do? Is that really someone's head? Like,
Yes.
I think maybe some of the time it was like somebody popping out of like the floor, and then sometimes it was just a puppet. But I couldn't, it was good.
It was real good, and he was when he got killed by Les. Les took some like garden shears and lopped off, but it was just the top part of his head. It was from his upper jaw up. Yeah. And it was so well done because you're right. There were moments where it was definitely an actor like sticking up through a floor to look around, but then that head kept getting kicked around, and so it would just slide across the floor and then end up somewhere else. That one was real good. Faye, did you have a favorite in that third act of stuff?
Yeah, the light bulb.
That one looks so good. The zombie, she gets impaled on a light bulb, and then her whole face lights up.
That is the long game too, because she's there for so long in the back of the scene, and she gets pulled up later.
Yes,
this is great.
They kept it going until she finally catches on fire. Oh, it was so good, and it looks amazing. Like, it just looks great. All right, so we got 3/4 of a head rolling or sliding around on the floor, and glowy face. Dredd, did you have a favorite?
I'm gonna go back to the food processor for a second, because I think it is similar in this part of the movie where she tries to blend the baby, and
Oh
then
yeah.
she put the
Yeah.
baby in the blender, and then she goes to the on-off switch, and she's like, "Should I?
Oh.
Should I?" And then she looks back up, and the baby's just gone. It's just hanging there. And what
That's
the
true.
fuck?
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
But
Again,
other than
everything
that,
with the baby.
Yeah.
the baby was
Aw.
great. I can't really give my favorite
Wait, did the
killing.
baby fall back into the blender after that?
It did.
Is that how
Yes.
it died?
Yes, the baby
Oh,
did
well then
fall
there you
back
go.
in.
I forgot about that. I'm traumatized.
Other than
It
that,
really
That's it.
the things that are named, I would agree on. I can't really think of anything else because there was so much going on, and I was
What
just
I
like, "What? What? No. What? Oh, what?
There was
Oh
some
God!"
crazy stuff in there.
what I found funny is she was in the kitchen killing things with the food processor, the blender,
Mhm.
and he was in there killing everything with the garden instrument, the lawnmower.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was the 50s.
So, yep.
Yeah. They were the perfect couple.
Exactly.
Aw.
Um, for me personally, it's everything with Void in that last scene. So like he comes out and he's wreaking havoc, but then he gets split in half in the bathroom. So then like the upper half of him is going after Lionel while his legs are out in the other room. When Lionel goes back out there, the legs start kicking at him. And then his guts are like the third
Yep.
part of it, and they're
Oh god.
independent, and that puppet was just awful.
Yeah.
And we got tentacles
We
with the
did.
intestines.
But even like putting the upper half of Void in the toilet at one point and putting the seat
And
down over his
closing the
head so
lid.
he can't get away.
Mm.
And like when the legs were attacking Paquita and I think it's Rosie later on the stairs, and they split him in half, and just like it,
And use them as battery.
yeah, and it just kept getting more and more ridiculous. And then by the end of it, he's got the legs up on his shoulders so that he can walk. Like it just
Yeah.
everything involving him was so awful, and it just
Yeah.
kept going. And this whole thing is going on, like this whole bloodbath is going on. Lionel at one point gets up in the attic and finds the like trunk, and it's got all his dad's stuff in it, and that's when he learns about the fact that because we kept getting these flashes of we learned that his dad died when he was real young, drowned. And we keep getting these flashes of like a face in water or a hand in water or whatever. And come to find out, yeah, his dad might have probably had an affair, and mom killed him and the woman drowned in the bathtub in front of Lionel. Because in the one flashback, he's standing in the room.
Jeez.
Yep, that was the final flashback. Yeah.
So we learned that about her, and that's when Lionel he finally gets outside and gets the lawnmower. And I just love how he just goes outside and comes back in, and he's got the lawnmower strapped like over his shoulder and holding it out in front of him. Because the shot early on when he's mowing the lawn in the beginning of the movie is my single favorite shot of the movie. Because I just love that, like it's just him walking straight up and then walking straight over camera with the running lawnmower and stopping it. The way they set all that up, it just looks so good. And if you've never seen this movie before and you don't know anything about it, that just looks like a really cool shot. But then it coming back at the end like this, and he just goes bonkers with
Party's
that
over.
lawnmower. Yes. Oh, it was fantastic. I captured some audio. We need to hear some audio from this movie, right? There's too much good stuff. Too much. The beginning of the movie, when they're bringing the Sumatran Rat Monkey, I just loved the one guy's like,
This thing is evil, man. I got the bad feeling.
Bad feeling.
Bod.
I bet you do.
yeah. And I mean, come on,
It's only a bloody monkey, for Christ's sake. Now, pick it up.
it's only a bloody monkey.
I feel like most of them sounded Australian.
It was a cheeky monkey.
Well, this is a New Zealand film, so they sound like New Zealanders.
Which is right next to Australia.
Yeah.
Did you know that? Dread, did you know New Zealand was
Yes.
right next to Australia? Huh,
Yes, I would
interesting.
like to point out that the movie did explain why I didn't see this monkey when I was at the Wellington Zoo. Because they killed it.
Yes, because it was
Yeah.
only from that one island.
When the guy from the New Zealand zoo commissioner or whatever gets bit, I just liked
You've got the bite.
the bite. This one I got. This is from the zoo scene, and it's just this is too good not to.
Holy shit!
That is one of my favorites.
Yep.
Like the delivery is great.
Holy shit.
Yeah, that poor zoo worker.
That
Yeah.
guy.
That was a great one.
Paquita. She had one of the best lines in the movie. So here's that.
Your mother ate my dog!
Not all of it.
Travis.
Gotta be a mama's boy. Be anything that
Yeah.
make mama be good.
It's look. We all know I hate
Why
it.
you gotta make us watch these movies with the dog? With the
I
dog?
don't like that they killed the dog either, but the delivery of that line is pretty amazing.
I like his.
Not all.
Not all of it.
And just pan over to just carnage on the bed.
Oh,
Ugh.
gross.
At least we didn't have to see all of that happen.
Mhm.
Oh yeah, it was much better this way.
Yep, left to your imagination. It could be things far worse.
I don't know. That really came out of her throat.
Uh,
I saw that.
I liked. This is another Paquita line.
But we are romantically entangled.
Entangled.
She was kind of entangled on that line there.
Yeah, she was.
Romantically entangled. I'm allowed to do that.
And I also liked this,
Bastardo!
just because Bastardo. I just like that. I think that's when the first time she kicked Les in the junk.
He needed to be kicked more.
His
So,
junk
okay.
got a lot of action. Let's be honest.
According to the trivia, in Act 3, Les is hit in the balls 5 times. And by my estimation,
enough.
that's not enough.
Nope.
He needed more.
Agreed. Here.
So let's see. Dark. Oh, this was when everything has kind of gone terrible. Lionel goes to her and seeks her out and says,
Tell me about these dark forces.
and I liked that because it's like the movie is so ridiculous and the melodramatic way he delivered that. It
was like a soap opera.
Yeah, the music too. The music was very soap opera throughout the whole thing, which was perfect.
We didn't bring up the medallion that they gave him.
Oh yeah.
Well, so he gets it after that, right? He goes and sees the grandmother, and she gives him that medallion to protect him. Keep him safe. Keep it close to you all times. Mother. Oh, okay.
Your mother's dead, Lionel.
I just like
Dead.
did. Nurse
Is she
McTavish.
though?
I mean, mostly dead.
Mostly.
I mean, she comes back very large at the end.
Yeah. Boy, that puppet.
Yeah. She's dead alive.
Mm-hmm.
Literally.
Coming in with the lawnmower.
Party's over.
That's a hell of an entrance.
I could just see Bruce Campbell doing that. That was
right.
Him showing up with the chainsaw.
Like that was straight out of an Evil Dead movie. It was such a good version of that hero entrance.
Evil Dead movie, but with Jeffrey Combs, because that guy gave me so many Combs vibes.
Oh yeah.
Like it was hardcore.
There was a lot of
those two movies together.
Yeah, there was a lot of Sam Raimi and a lot of Stuart Gordon influence in early Peter Jackson stuff. You could tell. I like too. So he's come through now, and he's like the whole thing. He just goes running through with the lawnmower out in front of him, just mowing through zombies. Right, like multiple passes and all of that, and everything's done. And I did like when he says,
Haven't seen Mum yet.
"Haven't seen Mum yet."
It's not done yet.
No, we're not quite through. And this
His
was
protagonist
less.
that's not actually an idiot.
Yeah, surprising. I know. This was less during all of the zombie craziness. He'd left and he came back into the house and he's in the kitchen with Paquita and Rosie, I think. And that's when he notices she was bit on the neck and he just.
She's been bitten! You know what that means? She's gonna turn into one of them!
Because he's read all the comics. He knows.
Mm-hmm.
He said that later.
Well, he's also seen it all happen.
Right. Yeah, he's just terrible. I'm sorry. More shots to the junk for less. I did get a couple of mom's lines. Only 2. But this was after she's bitten at the zoo. I just liked this.
Look at this! It bit me. I've been savaged.
I've been savaged.
Savaged.
Yeah, but you seem to be acting just fine, so have a nice day.
Put some Windex on it. It'll be all right. And then, this was this.
It's a WLWL.
That's when she's falling apart sitting at the table. Or no, that's when she's in bed and she's like, no, I have to get ready for this because it's the WLWL, the Wellington Ladies Welfare League. That's what it was. I knew I'd get there eventually. All right, Father Magruder. Father Magruder's the best. It's the best part of this movie. And I like because he's already, like, before the services started, he's already annoyed with Lionel for the whole thing. So he's like,
and if he's not here in 10 minutes, his mother will be delivered into the hands of the Lord in his absence.
The Lord.
So he is already fed up with this guy. And so while he's giving his big sermon, and I love it because he's giving this big bombastic sermon and he's in his pose. And that's when Lionel crashes through the sidewall with his mother's corpse. And a syringe in his hand, right? Because he's been stabbing her in the nose with the tranquilizer. Which, yeah, you're right. It only worked in the nose because he stabbed. He didn't inject Nurse McTavish. He just stabbed the needle into her eye. But when he crashes through the wall, and again, Father Magruder,
Resurrected.
I just like the way he says that.
Resurrected.
I want a movie just with him. I just wanted him.
Yes. I just want a movie of Father Magruder. Right? Because when everything's going down in the graveyard and he just shows up.
Stay back, boy. This calls for divine intervention.
And he gets the musical
chills.
He just starts doing martial arts bullcrap all over him.
Yep. just housing those boys and flips them around, and then we get.
I kick ass for the Lord.
The most famous gif from this movie.
I kick ass for the Lord.
Oh, so good with that Kiwi accent. It's perfect. Perfect. Also, if you know me, you know that I love to get dumb fake laughs. And this movie had 2 fantastic dumb fake laughs from just earlier in that same graveyard scene with the greaser dudes. Because he made his like really dumb joke, and then that laugh is great. I think this one might be better. I'm not sure.
Oh,
I'm not sure which one I like more.
They could fight each other.
They could. Those are amazing. And the last thing I have is just titled Romance, and it sounds a little something like this.
Romance. What about money?
Oh, that's right. Paquita's dad.
Mm-hmm.
Who we see in one scene and never again.
Can I mention one thing that I found funny?
Yes.
Is a very subtle thing from earlier in the movie, but the scene where his mom, like Paquita, is trying to pack stuff, and he's getting choked out by his mom, and he's trying to hide it, and she's like, "Which toothbrush is yours, the white or the green?" And he like smashes his mom, and he finally gets loose just so he can yell up, "Green!"
Yes.
And I'm like, "That's what you're saying? That's what you're gonna say to her? Like, not help?"
That scene was great because he turned on the radio and the radio play was like somewhat describing what was going on without actually
Oh no,
describing
I dropped
exactly
a
what was going.
vase.
It was
Oh.
so good. It was killing me.
That was a good scene.
Sorry, Faye, you were going to say something.
I don't remember if I was.
Okay. This movie has a great. It is so ridiculously over the top in its gore, but Peter Jackson kind of had this idea of like, no, he wants the comedy element of this. He didn't want to do like straight up, hardcore horror, but he wanted the blood and everything on screen, but make it funny too. So he just goes way over the top with everything. Everything is so far beyond that it almost becomes inoffensive in a way because it's cartoonish. You can't take it seriously anymore. Because we talked about there's the moment of the zombies having sex that we don't see, but we just hear. But then later on, there is
Yes.
they get back together. The two, which is awful, but also like that's all those two wanted. They just wanted each other. Like I did have a note of like, oh, that's actually kind of like in a horrendously gross way sweet because they just want to get on each other.
It's just like the two from Anna and Apocalypse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's so over the top. Like it's horrendous. It's horrific, but it's so over the top that it's bordering on getting back around to not being offensive. Although there were definitely countries that banned this movie, like I think South Korea did, and a couple of others. And what was it? I read somewhere that Germany did, and then they only had there was only like a severely cut down version of it. And the funny thing is, the British film rating, we're going to give this a 15 certificate, which is basically their version of a step below rated R. Because they have a 15 and then they have an 18. And they were going to give this a 15 because, as they said, it's just so over the top that it isn't that bad. But they ended up giving it an 18 just for the amount of gore that's in it.
No. I thought they were going to lower it for showing the queen at the beginning.
Okay, but I do love when everything is going down, he takes the time to turn the picture of the queen over so it doesn't get blood splattered on it. That was pretty great. Yeah, it's just...
Can I say that it's also like just the timing of us watching this, like, and for those of us who have seen Terrifier, and we're not going to spoil that movie, obviously, but the fact that movie is on the other side of the scale of over the top gore, but still kind of being scary at the same time. But it's in the same kind of vein of being so over the top, and yeah,
because there definitely there definitely is a way to do that level of gore and make it horrific, and make it difficult and scary. But that wasn't the goal of this movie. This movie was to be silly and funny, and so it's a lot more, and that's where like the Sam Raimi influence and the Stuart Gordon influence is there. You can see it because those two, I mean, Reanimator is super gory and super gross, but it's done satirically and it's not meant to be taken seriously at all. And same thing with Evil Dead. Like Evil Dead, no, I know we've talked about like the first Evil Dead wasn't set out to be a comedy per se, but they sort of understood that it's going to be a little bit that way, and so definitely leaned into it by the sequel. But this was, Peter Jackson set out to make this movie funny, but also just gallons of blood, like supposedly 70-80 gallons of fake blood for the final scene.
300 liters for those over the seas.
And that's not even taking into account like the final scene on the rooftop with Mom, the giant mom puppet with huge boobs. You got your boobies there, Brad.
And a butt.
Nice.
Yes. Because that was I think that was the second grossest part, was when she like envelops Lionel.
Oh, God. It could have been worse. He could have gone in a different way.
Yeah, no, it definitely could have been worse. But that was a lot. Look, this movie is just How he was so clean at the end of it too is kind of funny. Like that was one of the goofs in IMDb is, you know, oh, after that he should have been covered in blood, but his pants were clean. Like, okay, sure. We can nitpick that
He
all
was
you want.
scotch guarded head to toe.
Yeah.
Even his hair.
Right? But now this movie, as long as you can handle ridiculous, and I mean ridiculous amounts of fluids all over the screen, this movie is super fun because it just doesn't take itself seriously. It's silly. So Faye, you said you liked it, but you probably would have liked it more had you seen it when you were younger.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I didn't. I guess I'm getting too old.
Were you expecting it to be scarier? Was maybe
no, I
that
was
part of it,
expecting
or
to be funnier.
okay?
I was expecting it to be more like Evil Dead 2.
And I mean, parts of it definitely got there with like the guts at one point trying to pull him up from the cord when you can clearly see it's like hands inside a puppet. That cracked me up.
Mm-hmm. The baby, everything with the baby. Yeah,
everything with the baby, ridiculous.
Yep.
Yeah, this is an example of just somebody really just going for it in a silly way, and I kind of like that. So Monica, now that you've seen this a couple times now, is this one that you would, I don't want to say like a regular rotation maybe, but is this something you would watch again?
Yeah, I think that like so the first time you watch it, it's like like cult status now, and it's like, oh, I gotta see this movie. And the second time, I don't even remember, we watched it, with other people and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And then so I think this time was the first time, because I got to watch it with somebody never watching it before, that it inspired like a new level of glee. And just like, because I had seen it when I was younger, and him watching it means that like he realized that like this is just his kind of movie completely.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like 100%. I mean, Dread, by the way.
Yes.
It's not 100% my kind of movie, but there's just something so joyful about it that's just, it's just.
And I think
freaking fun.
That is a big part of it, is that there is a joyfulness to the film itself that makes, because this is, I mean, it's gross, it's over the top, it's kind of too much, and it should on paper feel like the same thing as something like our collectively hated movie Poultrygeist. However, it's not, because it never strays into that. Like Poultrygeist didn't have the joy and the charm that this does, right? It felt mean spirited, and it felt like it was punching down. And this doesn't do that. It doesn't have that mean spirit, and there is that just sense of like, there's just a joyousness to it. It's I don't know. That's the only way I can describe it, and it makes this is doing a splatter movie the right way, to make it a cult classic and something enjoyable down the road. And this is the fun sort of get everybody together, maybe have some beers or some wine or whatever, and watch a movie like collectively, like a big group watch. This is that kind of movie. Can you imagine going and seeing something like this on like a late night in a theater type movie, like a midnight movie? That kind of crowd.
I'd love that. Yeah.
Like people who know the lines and get up and start shouting.
Sure. Oh yeah.
Shadow casting it.
I mean, this could be that kind of a movie for sure. And there was talk.
When we organize our first Gore Fests, we'll show it.
There you go.
There you go.
Yeah.
There was talk at one point, I don't know if it's happening or not, of a 4K re-release of this and Bad Taste and Meet the Feebles, because Peter Jackson had gotten some of the rights back, and it was a few years ago, because it was around the time he put out a World War I documentary where he had developed some, or helped work on some tech to clean up old film, and so he wanted to then use that same technology on some of his old films. So That'd be kind of fun. Can you imagine this in 4K?
Yes, please.
You'd see more of the wires that you already can see.
Yeah, you'd see a lot more of the
No,
stuff. That's the only thing
But
I don't like
clean
about
those up.
Fine.
Well, yeah, he has enough money to clean that up.
Yeah. I honestly, though, that adds to the charm of it. There's moments where you can see like the wire work or whatever. I kind of like that. But no, it's just, you have to, as long as you can deal with super bloody, gory films, which I know not everybody can. So there's definitely a lot of people that would just immediately be turned off by it. But if you're a horror movie fan, watch this, because this is fun. And it makes me want to do The Frighteners on Gore. We need to do that. That's a great movie.
The Frighteners.
I want to do that for this show. I need to find somebody who hasn't seen it, because that was my introduction to Peter Jackson. I saw that before seeing any of the Lord of the Rings stuff. I remember renting The Frighteners, and that's a great one.
Dead Alive and The Frighteners. I think that's all I've seen of Peter Jackson.
I had to remind
I
myself.
might have seen the first Lord of the Rings.
Fox.
Oh
yeah. Well,
and what's his beak that looks like the guy in this movie? I just said his name earlier. Jeffrey Combs.
Jeffrey Combs. Yep. Jeffrey
John
Combs,
Astin.
and also Jake Busey.
Jake Busey.
That was my introduction to Jake Busey, was The Frightener.
And Dee Wallace.
Yeah.
Yep.
It's Arlie Ermey, isn't it?
I like him.
That's a great movie. It really is. Chi McBride too. Anyway, this was super fun. I'm glad that I got to show Faye, and apparently Dredd hadn't seen it either, so got to show both of you this movie, which is super fun for me. And you enjoyed it. I had a feeling you would. Seemed like the type of movie we would all like. So that's always fun. If you like listening to us talk about horror movies, Monica, where can people listen to us do that all year round and not just in October?
Oh, yeah. You can go to gorepodcast.com. You can check out all of our wonderful horror movie podcast episodes. Yeah, we do basically the same thing here, except, different. And, I'm real good at describing things.
We talk
and
horror
you'll get
in
more of
all
that
its
on that show.
Yeah.
It's still the four of us, and yeah, it's like pasta. Like, you put all the ingredients in a pasta. It's just that, like, sometimes it's linguine and sometimes it's okay. I'm going too far with this analogy. Someone stop me. Oh, we never mentioned, by the way. Okay, you know what? gorepodcast.com. Go check us out or find us on your podcast app of choice. But we never mentioned the whole Braindead thing and why we have to call it Dead Alive here.
Oh, right. Thank you for reminding me about that. Yes. So Braindead is the original title, and that was the title pretty much everywhere. But when Trimark bought the rights to distribute it in the U.S., they changed the name to Dead Alive because there had been a movie from a couple years earlier called Braindead with Bill Pullman and Bill Paxton in it. So they didn't want any confusion.
I watched that movie. The Braindead, not the same movie.
No.
It's definitely not the same movie.
So yeah, I had forgotten. So thank you for reminding me about that. Also, one of the things that we do on the Gore podcast, if you don't listen to that, is we have our 13, which is our list of tropes and things that happen in horror movies that we look for in every movie that we watch. But one of those things is our Savini scale, for the great Tom Savini, of gore. So on a 1 to 13 scale, because we use that, which makes ranking things more interesting. Monica, where would you put this on the Savini scale of gore?
He says interesting, but he's thinking more difficult. This is, look, 13. It's going to be a 13. I think this is so well made and so over the top and for its time. And I give it also, extra for being from New Zealand, because I know it's different than being a Hollywood movie and whatnot. It's a 13 for me. It's just phenomenal.
All right, Faye, what's your score?
12.
Okay.
All I'm stingy with those extra points.
It's fair. That's fair. Dread, what do you give it?
I'll then give it a 14 out of 13. There. How about that? Breaking the scales.
What did he
Look,
give it?
14. So yeah, this all looks great. It's just weird, and there's so much of it, and it all looks great. And knowing when this was made, on the budget it was made, and just knowing you can see where they went now, because nowadays the
Oh yeah.
Weta workshop, or you pronounce it, they're known. They're everywhere when you need special effects and all that. They are like on the top of the thing. So yeah, you can see. And
Yeah.
I hate to admit it, but it's well deserved. There you go.
And I'm also going to rank this on a 13. I mean, it's just top level. And Richard Taylor, of course, is the effects head for this, and he went on to found Weta Workshop with Peter Jackson and do all the Lord of the Rings stuff and everything they've done since then. And Richard Taylor is an amazing prop maker, puppet maker, all that kind of stuff. Like those guys, they just knew what they were doing, and everything that's come out of it. And to do it for such a low budget, this was a $3 million movie in 1992.
I forgot to also preface that it gets a 13 also because it was trying to be funny. Like, if this was trying to be serious and it looked the way it did, then it would obviously get less, right?
Sure.
But
Oh,
it
yeah.
is trying to be funny. So then you also take that into, not you guys, but audience.
Yeah, absolutely. No, that's part of it. Is it did what it set out to do, and it
Dead
executed it so well. So that is Dead Alive, aka Braindead, wrapping up Spooky Month Gore Podcast Takeover. This is always fun. This is one of my favorite months of the year in general, but I love doing this every year with the three of you because Gore is a fun podcast to make, and I enjoy making that and talking, but it is fun as well to do more of that. And so we get to add extra episodes this time of year, which is super fun.
Yay!
Since we do less episodes on Gore this time of year, apparently.
Somehow that's how it works out. But thank you all for being here and hanging out with me. If you like to watch this show happen live, it does happen Sunday nights. And you can watch it here at twitch.tv/tvstravis, over on YouTube at tvstravis. Follow me on all the socials. You'll get the links for when that goes live, or my Discord. And you can go to tvstravis.com. There's links to get to the Discord, to get to Patreon, which helps keeps this show going, lets me do things like my live versions of the show that I did this year in Las Vegas and in Atlanta, and hopefully we'll do more of next year. So, and there's new stuff coming for patrons. I'm going to be bringing back movie catch-up nights once a month. That's been in the works for a little while. So that's happening. Plus, there is there's going to be new mini episodes in the Patreon feed that are going to be patron only of my thoughts on certain miniseries, whether they're horror related or not. I've been watching a lot of Mike Flanagan stuff, so that's what spawned that. So be on the lookout for that. And if you want to join the Patreon, you can find the link at tvstravis.com or patreon.com/WYHS. But thank you so much for listening to this show. And I appreciate every one of you. And then I also appreciate the three of you, Monica, Faye, Dredd. You guys are great. Thank you for being here all month. And
always
remember to enjoy your movies. And it's spooky season, but we can still be excellent to each other. And there's been Wait you haven't seen.
Is that the one with the donkey and the chambermaid? No.
Do you really think I wouldn't capture that? Really?
I had forgotten about that.